Hi, friends. I was pressing live. Hi, friends. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley Ariana, joined today by Marco from Clutch Team Sports. Yesterday, I was listening to you and Jesse's show, and he said Marco Martinez in like kind of a
Yeah,
wrestling.
like he did it like I was coming up to bat or something, or I was
I
coming
know,
out of
I
the
know. Yeah.
WWE.
But that's stuck in my head now. Um, but we have a ton to talk about. I'm excited for this part of the off season to be getting underway. Today was rookie mini camp, the first day of like actual practices. Yesterday, the rookies all reported. We had some interviews. Today, we had some Nick Sorensen coaching interviews. I'm excited. I love like the time of summer when you're kind of like on Twitter looking at, Mayoko, Grant, whoever, and trying to see how many drops and interceptions and what's going on. Obviously, this is just the rookies. I feel like the meat of everything doesn't get started for a little while longer, but I'm still excited. How are you feeling?
This is the fun time, like with rookie mini camp, and then after rookie mini camp, you have OTAs for a couple of weeks, and then you're going back to training camp after like a couple of weeks off and everything like that. So this is or mini camp. You get rookie mini camp, OTAs, and then training camp. Like this is the fun time of the year because this is where essentially the season gets started, and then from here on, it's go time.
I was just pressing buttons. Don't worry about it. Um, okay. What do you want to start with? Do you want to start? Oh, and then we also, because this will be a fun thing to touch on with you, I want to touch on there's kind of like a debate
Oh,
going
the
on Twitter and on some podcasts with Brock Purdy versus Jordan Love. I heard a little bit of your opinion. And I even touched on it with Stephanie, but I feel like I didn't give it a lot of thought. And now that I've consumed more information about it, I think it would be fun, especially with you, to debate because I know you can rile people up in the comment section. But we'll start with, like I said, there was press conferences yesterday and today. Did any of them stand out to you? What was like your initial reaction seeing some of these players just on your screen for the first time?
I thought Malik Mustafa, very, very like impressive interview. I'm just talking about how like he truly understands who he is as a person. And when you know who you are as a person and as a player, like that self-reflection allows you to be a much, much better football player. And what I mean by that is, for example, when you know you're not the most athletically gifted or the fastest dude on the field, it allows you to win in other ways. I thought he was one of the more impressive interviews. Definitely could see why John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan loved his interview and why John Lynch said that was the most impressive interview he had out of the entire draft process. Like he's just like he carries himself the right way, and like I thought that was pretty damn cool. Another player I thought was cool and a lot he looked a lot younger and kind of gave me the vibe of someone who's going to come in
Green.
and compete. Renardo Green, like I felt like he looked young.
He looked like a baby.
I was like, oh dang. And then I like how he talked about his teammate Jerry on Jones. I thought his teammate was a baller. I thought both of them were really good at FSU. But I like how he talked about how he's going to come in and he's going to compete and he's going to ask so many questions to guys like Charvarius Ward, Denobin Lenore, and right off the bat, we pretty much know what the Niners starting secondary is
Because
based off of
he's getting trained in at nickel, right?
yeah. So
The
we
weird
know the
thing about
starting corners
him,
now.
really quickly, just to touch on that, the weird thing, because I also, when I saw him, I was like, oh my gosh, baby, you look so young. But he was a fifth year starter and he's 23 years old, which is kind of crazy. Obviously 23, like in the world, very, very baby and young. But a lot of guys, coming out are 21. So he's actually not very young comparatively to that. But yeah, he's a smaller dude. But luckily for the secondary, you can be smaller as long as you're able to, still be physical and have that correct mindset. And it did feel like he had that on film and then in his press conference. And you're right with his mindset about wanting to compete. Go ahead though. I just wasn't sure if you caught that he was already 23.
So for him, it's competing inside first. I think it kind of gives you the idea of what the Niners plan on doing and why they took Renardo Green. from what I had heard, and I had said this before on a previous show with you, is that Demo didn't want to be inside. Demo wanted to go back outside,
Yeah.
money wise, and everything
Make
like
less.
that.
Yeah.
So it's for me, it's like, okay, that makes sense. Like Ronaldo Green's gonna come in. He's probably gonna be your day one nickel starter, right out the gate. It'll be Charvarius Ward, Ronaldo Green, and Demo outside. But what's interesting to me is I like what Coach Sorensen said. And he was like, we want him to learn the role inside first before we give him the opportunity to expand. And what I think that does for a player, it lets him, a lot of times teams will, hey, you're going to play outside, and then with the second unit, you're going to go inside, or second unit, you're outside, first unit, you're inside. Like they move around so often that things are just flying for these players. And it's just, and I can't wait for Monday, because I'm going to ask Jay Hart on the show, how is it like when you're at rookie minicamp as a rookie? When he was in the league, like, it's how do things move? Like, you have to learn so many concepts, so many things like this. Like, it's just mastering one spot on the roster, which is inside for Ronaldo Green, more important than mastering both right now when you don't really need him to be an outside corner at the moment.
Did you see Dan Orlovsky? Dan Orlovsky. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that last name wrong. He actually went over Kyle Shanahan's playbook himself and kind of discussed how many times the rookies go over that before regular season starts. It's 3 times, once in rookie minicamp, once in regular camp or regular offseason programming, and then once together in training camp. And basically during rookie minicamp, from what he said, is they try to throw as much information as possible at you, to try to, not only because, like, obviously you need to know everything, but to see how you deal with that pressure and that stress, and how much you can actually retain kind of right away, so they know, okay, these are guys we can count on, because they go over it, three times together as a team, and then everything else is what you do on the off thing, on your off time. Everything from where you stand in the huddle, I always thought that you just, like, crowd around the quarterback. Everything from where you stand in the huddle is all laid out, all the different long names that they give for all the plays,
So
all that.
I'm going to explain something. So I had to, sorry to cut you out, but so
Yeah.
my high school coach, he was a strength and conditioning coach at Stanford, right? He came from Stanford. He does look like a surfer.
That was funny.
He does
As
look
someone
like a
who
surfer, dude.
spent the majority of my adulthood in Santa Barbara, I feel like I've seen Nick Sorensen just hanging out on the beach. I like that.
He probably does surf on his off time. But so he coached at Stanford. So like everything he brought was like a college like system, and Stanford ran an NFL like offense. So at first, when a lot of us were learning the playbook, for me, it was really easy. Like, I thought, I'm always been IQ wise, like, I want to be a master of my game. So coming in, it was pretty impressive on how he had the offensive huddle be a certain way. Like, you're Z with me, X, like everything, like certain positions are lined up next to each other for a reason. Tight end is lined up with the slot guy for a reason. X, Y. There's so many reasons why, right? So when I saw Dan Orlovsky say that, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. We did that
Like,
stuff
you
too.
weren't even shocked by
Yeah,
that.
like I wasn't shocked about that. Like it's one of those ones where it's like, hey, you do this because when you break the huddle, it's easier to break the huddle. But I'm just kind of interested to see how everything goes. I did like, and I'm pretty sure you thought the same thing with Nick Sorensen, him talking about him being on the field. I thought that was kind of like, it makes sense.
And it felt like also he was saying that the way he answered that question, not that he's throwing
it
shade.
was low-key shade. It was low-key shade.
Okay. I'm glad that you picked up on that too,
I felt
because
shade too.
I felt bad just saying that. But it was
No,
like,
I felt the shade.
he was like, that's where I prefer to be, former player, being able to connect with the players, having clear communication. For really quickly before we get into the coaching interviews, did any of the other player interviews stand out to you? I wasn't sure if you've seen the I always say his name Bunny, and Brother Bob makes fun of me. Is it Puny or Pooney?
Dominic Puny. Don't let Brother Bob discourage you, man. If Brother Bob's watching this later, he's Brother Bob, chill. Nah, a good dude, man. Shout out to Brother Bob. But I did not. I saw clips of it. I did not watch the whole thing. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I thought he looked very like I was pleasantly surprised by his interview. I felt like he obviously you from everything I've heard is you can't really assess offensive linemen right away because there's 7-on-7 going on. They're not like
Oh yeah.
in game situation, but just off of like eye test, does he look like he fits in? I'm we're gonna discuss it later. Ronaldo Green looked young in the interview, but so far he is one of the standouts from actual practice today that they had. So only talking about interviews, I'm not saying this, has anything to do with how he's going to perform, but I thought Puny looked like he could really compete for a starting job this upcoming season. He looked big. He looked like and this I don't mean this offensively, but sometimes I feel like offensive linemen to like gain a lot of fat, they kind of look a little out of shape. Obviously they're not. They're like playing football, but he was big and had weight on him, but he carried it really well and he was one of the ones that did not look young. He looked like if he has the opportunity to compete, that at least he would look the part. I'm not saying anything about his actual skills because I don't want to
No, yeah.
I think he should be able to.
I totally get what you're saying. Like some players, what they do is they're usually undersized, right? So what they do is they pack on so much weight, and it's not good weight. Dominic Puny carries his weight well. Like it's not like he packed on a lot of weight just to be a 300-pound offensive lineman. Obviously, he's girthy. Pause. And he's just a naturally like big dude. So I don't necessarily see him being a guy who I honestly I think he starts year one. I think he right out the gate. Kyle Shanahan's give him the opportunity to start. It doesn't make sense to take an offensive lineman, and this is my belief in when you draft players in the first 3 rounds. Those dudes should be given an opportunity to compete for a starting job immediately because you drafted them high enough with the mindset that they could be a starter for your team. If Puny's not starting year one, I'd be shocked. Truthfully, I'd be shocked.
Oh, I like that. Okay, I'm hopeful that you're right. I don't think I initially anticipated that because they've talked so much about like continuity and stuff. But
you also got to remember there's got to remember though, Ashley. So when they're talking continuity because they don't have any new rookies or new players on their squad, right? So now it's different when that continuity is different when you have a young rookie, right? Like if they had Puny and Kyle Shanahan was already talking about continuity and I want Feliciano to be one of the starters, it would be different. The fact that they waited a while to re-sign Feliciano kind of tells me that they were coming into the draft with the mindset to find a starter at right guard.
I think you're right. And did you hear Feliciano was actually out there today? I guess helping.
Most players will show up. So Danny Gray was already there. So players who have already been working
I don't think
out.
Danny Gray's gonna make the team.
No, I'm not saying he will. I mean, but most players who've been working at the facility that have been there will show up for practice and give tips and stuff like that. Netra, shout out to you. We do see your message. I hope we do see your message. So I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Mr. Corey, Feliciano was not the second best player on the offensive line. That was actually Aaron Banks.
I would agree with that. Okay, I wanted to just touch on like Puny's build. I did think he looked nice. I like that you think he'll have a chance to maybe step in and actually have an opportunity to compete. What will Willie Snead say about that? We have no idea. Ninercast. So this is Tom, and Tom says Puny starting at some point this season. Yes, immediately. It's Kyle and Jaden. I agree. That I think that was kind of my hesitation. Is it feels like Kyle isn't fast to give these rookies an opportunity, but just based on the eye test, it looked like he could fit in great. So,
and for the reason why I do think he is do you remember when the Niners drafted Aaron Banks? He was projected to start. If it wasn't for him getting an injury, or shoulder injury, he would have been starting year one. So I think Kyle is going to let a rookie start. I get where we haven't seen Kyle let rookies play and stuff like that. I get that. But from what Aaron Banks experienced, Kyle was getting ready to let him play. So if it wasn't for that injury, and Kyle was publicly said it, if it wasn't for the injury to his shoulder, he would have been starting week 1. So I think he starts week 1.
Okay, I like that. And then we did have my dad say Kyle effed up then, didn't even try to go after an O-line. Well, I mean, we just had a long conversation about an O-line player, and both of us think, I mean, we might be not exactly certain on the time, but we both think he'll at least have the opportunity to be starting this season, whether or not it's at the beginning of the season or later on. Anyways, hold on. I'm gonna put someone in a timeout because I don't know, they were freaking me out. But sorry, I have no idea.
I got you.
Yeah. Just got distracted by some comments going on there.
Do you want to go? Because I know we talked about rookie press conferences. Do you want to go coaching?
Go coaching. Yeah, coaching press conferences. I wanted to start with some things that stood out to me with Nick Sorensen. So he was asked about Brandon Staley's role, and so he talked about when he was asked, like, what is Brandon Staley's position? Is he going to be helping with game plan? Is he going to, like, I feel like people were prying for, is he going to like have word over you? Like, is he the one secretly in charge? I think it's like what people are getting at, right? But Nick Sorensen's PR answer was, oh, he's going to have like a holistic role in the team defense, and then went on to say he's not only going to be helping out the linebackers and the secondary, but he's going to be overseeing the entire defense, which, you know, to me goes, I'm like, okay, so if saying Brandon Staley's role is going to be holistic on the team is a PR answer, then what do you think holistic means in that sense? And is it fair? Maybe Kyle and John don't fit into this because John kind of answers to Kyle, but I feel like their traditional GM coach relationship is normally the coach answers to the GM. And I feel like the GM stereotypically has like a holistic view on the entire team because they influence the people that you're drafting and all this. So I'm thinking Brandon Staley, we saw he had an influence in the guys they picked up in free agency. It looked like he had an influence in some of the guys that they drafted. And from how Nick Sorensen was talking, to me, it sounds like he's probably going to have a say in some of the game plans and in how they're practicing. Which to me then goes, okay, he's kind of like the defensive coordinator. Is Nick Sorensen just the messenger for the players, the one that's going to stand on the sidelines like he so proudly talked about? And maybe they're going to hide Brandon Staley away, but want him to be the brains of the operation. What did you think by the holistic comment? Because obviously that's like just not answering the question in a straightforward way. It's trying to put some spoof on it, you know?
I thought it was very interesting because he talked about Brandon Staley in terms of he knows how to build a plan. He's in here, just getting him in here, talking football with him. He's like super humble. He talked about how Brandon Staley has the experience and how he's going to be watching stuff throughout the league and trying to implement it into our defense. And then he talked about how he has the ability to connect and he has more experience connecting DBs and nickels to the defensive line and linebackers. I thought this was a very interesting conversation because it kind of sounds like Brandon Staley is the dude who's running the defense and Nick Sorensen is just the face of the defense, the one who's communicating to the defense. I don't know. I truthfully, I felt like it is one of those ones where Brandon Staley is the mastermind behind everything and Nick Sorensen is the one who's going to be showing face. That's how I saw it. I don't know if it's more so where Brandon Staley is the D coordinator. And so kind of like, for example, how people used to compare Adam Peters and John Lynch. People used to say Adam Peters was the mastermind and John Lynch was just the face of GM. It could be in that similar way, but I think it's more so to do because Nick Sorensen doesn't have the experience that he's going to rely heavily, heavily, heavily on Brandon Staley. And at the end of the day, I think Brandon Staley is going to be a guy who essentially holds Nick Sorensen's hand as a first-year defensive coordinator. Hey, I got your back. This is what you need to implement more. This is working against this team. This coverage is working around the NFL. Maybe you should implement this, X, Y, Z. But I thought it was a pretty good from a first-year defensive coordinator to be open-minded, in the sense of most first-year coordinators would have been like, oh, he's just a defensive assistant. Like, I love that Nick Sorensen was open to allowing Brandon Staley to be a guy who truthfully could implement what he sees and what he thinks would work, because other defensive coordinators would be like, nah, this is my defense. I'm going to do what I want. So you can look at it both ways. It's Nick Sorensen is being babied and he's going to be handheld throughout the entire season by Brandon Staley. Or we could look at it as, you know what, Nick Sorensen is very open-minded and he's willing to accept the help of a former head coach, defensive coordinator who's done really good jobs at other places.
Niner Gang does not agree with this entire section. He is like furious that Staley is going to have any sort of input into this. He says, did everyone forget that this guy gave up 70? Shake my head. I will say, and we're going to have to see how it goes, but some guys can be good position coaches and aren't meant to be head coaches. You and I were just discussing how big Kyle Shanahan's playbook is. That's something Kyle Shanahan has to do every single year, where he's evolving his playbook. He's setting up these routines. Like, when you're a head coach, you're focused on a lot more than just scheme. I think sometimes Kyle Shanahan's criticism is that maybe he'd be better just as an offensive coordinator. Potentially the 49ers are testing out, okay, if we shorten Brandon Staley's role, like, he's obviously not going to be the head coach. If we're just having him influence, and he's working with Nick Sorensen, so maybe whatever he was doing that gave up 70, maybe it's like two heads working, for one decision. If Brandon Staley is going to suggest something that's outlandish, I think you and I would hope that Nick Sorensen would have the veto power about that.
Well, I think when you look at it, so a lot of people like to give Brandon Staley a lot of criticism, right? Which is rightfully so, because his tenure as a head coach wasn't great. But when he was a defensive coordinator in 2020 with the LA Rams, their defense was one of the best defenses in the league. They gave up the fewest points in the NFL. They had a couple of all-pros. So we could look at it two different ways. Like, hey, as a D coordinator, he's been good. As a position coach, he's been good. As just a head coach, he was terrible. You could also say the same thing about other coordinators in the league, right? Josh McDaniels, he gets a lot of criticism as a head coach, but as an offensive coordinator, he was actually pretty solid. So it's kind of like, hey, you know what? When you relieve a coach from all the pressure and all the duties, sometimes they're better at their job. For example, so I'm not too worried about him giving up 70 or against whatever. I think it was the Raiders. I might have been. So I'm not too worried about that.
I saw an Aaron Banks comment, and we'll get to that in a second. But I did want to read, because I got the transcripts and I wanted to read a couple passages just for people who didn't watch the entire Nick Sorensen press conference. So the question was asked about Brandon Staley and then how he answered. He said, he sees things holistically. He knows how to build game plans. Just getting him in here and spending extra hours just talking football with him. He's very bright and really humble guy who's smart and knows football. That's really awesome and been helpful for me. His role is more holistic. He's been helping me kind of overall. He's been involved with pretty much everything, which is something that my foot just fell asleep and it's tingling. And when it's like tingling and hurts.
That's the worst. You gotta stretch it
out. I feel like you and I, and anyone who's been really paying attention this offseason, would agree that he's been kind of helping with overall everything. Because I think he brought in people that were in his scheme or familiar with his system in free agency. It looked like he had, especially some of those secondary players. It feels like, I know that a lot of people have talked about in LA, he had Jalen Ramsey playing that star role where he was kind of all over the field. And you and I talked about how obviously they said they're going to start Ronaldo Green at nickelback. Um, but they're open to teaching him outside and maybe moving him all over the field. I'll be interested to see what they do with Mustafa, especially because when asked about Hafunga, it didn't sound like Hafunga might be ready for week 1. Did you get that feeling when, because I think it was Grant who asked Nick Sorensen about Hufanga, which I was glad someone asked a question, especially after all the offseason rumors of them maybe wanting to move off from him. Obviously, they wouldn't just say that in a press conference. And Nick Sorensen did speak highly of Huff and said that Huff has been in the building, doing rehab, practicing, getting to know the rookies, all that. But he's not fully participating yet. He's not, full go. Well, we can also talk about Dre Greenlaw and his Achilles, just when we're touching on injured players. But he did say, like, not to anticipate, any sort of timeline with Hafunga, which made me be like, okay, is he saying he's not going to be ready for training camp, or is he saying don't anticipate he'll be the week 1 starter? Which then that puts a lot more pressure on a guy like Mustafa, right?
I don't think it's he won't be the starter. I think it's more so like, hey, we know we might not have him back week 1. ACLs are tricky. He might not even be back to start camp. Like, the reality is with Hufanga is an ACL injury takes its time. It's the same thing like Dre Greenlaw. I've been saying Dre Greenlaw should be sent to the PUP to start the year, give him 5 weeks to prepare for the NFL at that speed. And what I mean by not necessarily like at prepare for the NFL, but like the game speed. The NFL game speed is much more faster than training camp speed. Your full bullets are flying. Like, you're not coming around in slow contact up to thud. Like, you're full go. So I think they'll let him ease his way back in. I don't think he'll be on the start time for week 1, and it's totally fine because we know who Hufanga is. Unfortunately, contract year. So his best bet is get healthy, show you can play for half a season or 13 weeks of a season, and then go get paid wherever you're going to get paid. Dre Greenlaw, you and I have talked about that one. We don't see. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but last time we spoke, I didn't see him coming back until week 5, 6, which makes sense. Yeah.
We both talked about, like, because there's also a difference, and I was glad he touched on this. Although, for like a person, I feel obviously sad for him because I think, he wants to be out there. You can tell he cares about this. Also, contract season coming up, all that. But he himself kind of addressed, like, there's a difference between being medically cleared and being cleared to play like Dre Greenlaw. Someone said Dre Greenlaw will never be the same again. I hope that's not true. Obviously, we don't know, especially with his position. Achilles is, a horrible injury, and it's not like I know he did the same surgery as Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know what people are talking about. I want to stay on
just stay on the show.
But
injury. So Dre Greenlaw got the same surgery as Aaron Rodgers.
But obviously, being a quarterback is much different than being a linebacker where you have to backpedal using that. And can you also, for everyone watching, was it the Achilles that was hurting him all year, which I think is what John Lynch said? But did Dre Greenlaw clarify that it was actually the other one?
So I don't know. So I had someone in my comments, and I'm gonna look it up now because he talked about when he went down, it was his left Achilles. That was the injury. But he also talked about the right Achilles affecting him throughout the year. So I have to go back and read what he was saying what John Lynch said, because I could have sworn John Lynch mentioned um it was the right Achilles, but I that's where I'm confused, because John Lynch was like, oh, it wasn't and it could be he tore his left and that the right Achilles was the one that's been bothering him throughout the year. So I'm not too sure. I have to go back and look at that. I'm not too sure which Achilles he tore or which one was bothering him throughout the year.
I think in the article, what he ended up saying is it was the opposite of the one that he had been nursing all year. And what he anticipates is because like and as a I ended up tearing both my hamstrings, and I totally understand what he means because I tore one hamstring and I was running track at the time and I was going through rehab. And when you're in those situations that are trying to, I'm gonna start banning people. um when you're when you're when you're trying to push it and trying to nurture, even not trying to push it, but just going through like rehab and stuff without realizing it, you're putting a lot more pressure on the other leg. So you can end up overworking that one. That's what I did and how I ended up tearing. Like I tore my hamstring that was like not injured at all after injuring this one. And I actually tore this one worse and had to rehab because of that. So
Jonas is saying Greenlaw had issues with the right but tore his left. And so what I'm most concerned about is getting out of a break, because when you are in a back pedal and you go to break, you are putting pressure on that calf Achilles area. So that's where I'm more concerned about. I'm not concerned about in the run game really, because you're still going to be able to come down. I mean, he might lose his speed or whatever, but I'm not too worried about that. So I'm not worried about that. For me, the biggest thing is, can Greenlaw get back to his natural speed? That's the biggest thing, is can he get his speed? Because we saw when Richard Sherman tore his as a corner, he didn't have that speed that he once had, which he was already slow, right? Like I'm not trying to say Richard Sherman was fast or anything. So that's what we may see. So hopefully, I mean, with the injured guys, I'm not too worried. They'll be back when they come back. Linebacker is probably the bigger concern, because we have safeties that can play safety. We have a young rookie that they just drafted who they're high on. They also have George Odom, who I guess could spot play. They also have Hawkins.
Really quickly, this is semi backpedaling to the Dre Greenlaw thing, but they did make several comments that Super Bowl field that they were practicing on was slightly more spongy. Now Dre Greenlaw, which I appreciate because he's such a competitor, he's not going to give any excuses for what's going on with him. But Fish and Chips points out that they had a spongy field that they were practicing on all week. Maybe that, the difference in terrain that they're used to might have also put extra stress on that Achilles.
It probably did, honestly, because it's a different field and everything like that. It just, I don't know if that was the cause. Like when you're throughout the entire season, when you're banged up and everything like that could be the cause of everything. So I'm not too worried in terms of him coming back. But Ricky minicamp happened, right?
Yes.
That's something that we could.
Last
or do you want to go to somewhere else?
Last thing for Nick Sorensen's comments when it comes to Brandon Staley, because I like our conspiracy theory that Brandon Staley is secretly the defensive coordinator, and for some reason
it's not a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy. I don't want, because what's going to end up happening is there's going to be words put in our mouths.
Okay,
we're going off what was said. We're going off what was said.
Yes, what is being, and how we're or how I am like reading between the lines is that Brandon Staley has a really big impact on this defense, and whether it's because they didn't have the confidence to go out and hire him after what a blunder he's been, or maybe it was more of a player thing. They were worried that the players wouldn't get behind him. We obviously saw contention with Brandon Staley, and we know that at least Nick Bosa's brother doesn't like Brandon Staley. So if he was immediately hired as the defensive coordinator, then would Nick Bosa have a problem with that? And if one of the best players on the team's like, don't you kind of feel like Steve Wilks, like the end of him was when Nick Bosa came out and talked badly about his scheme? So I feel like they needed Nick Sorensen as that buffer. But another comment that Nick Sorensen addressed that had me thinking, okay, Brandon Staley is gonna have influence on this defensive scheme is I think it was Grant asked about if the defense was going to evolve in any way from the last year, which we would hope it would, right? Like um, if we think about the fact that they didn't really have many disguises and stuff, like obviously they have incredible talent on their defense, but a lot of the remember with Kirk Cousins, Joe Burrow during that streak, it looked like opposing teams as soon as the defense lined up, they knew exactly what was coming. They weren't covering up anything. So Nick Sorensen said, "We are always looking to evolve in certain ways. I think there's things throughout the league that you see, and it's like, will this work? Will it not? But as far as what we do, our bread and butter, we're going to stick to that." So, what did you think about that? And then we'll move on to the players and the updates from today and actual practice.
I mean, I think it's pretty cool. So I'm gonna address Cubs' comment. Cubs, I know you're the one who commented, so I went back, actually looked at it. A couple other people in the chat looked at it. I think you're right. I was wrong. I thought it was based off when I heard the Dre Greenlaw interview. I thought he was talking about, and I misunderstood. I thought he was talking about the injury that happened was the one that was hurting him all year. I misunderstood. So, but he did say he thinks it was related to that injury. So that's kind of where we're talking about. Now I do want to keep the bread and butter, right? Like, because that is the defensive line. Like, that is where the defense, the wide nine, which keep it on the passing downs. Go away from the wide nine on base downs. That's why your run game is bad. Like, that's where I'm at. Like, because you're more sustainable to give up the run and the inside when you have the wide nine, and the Niners have been getting gashed. They don't have big bodies to move. So for me, I'm just about staying with what you like to do. Does that mean Kyle Shanahan told him you can't go more press man? Does that mean you can't do XYZ? Because if that's the case, it's like, Kyle, why don't you just freaking call defense and offense at this point? Like, if you're the defensive, that's what, like, I'm confused by, because truthfully, if the NFL is going to a defensive style where it's more press man, more cover one, cover zero, and getting up in your face, you could also be in cover three, press man, bell, and like that, and everything like that. So you could do certain things in press alignment. Remember, press is just an alignment. It's not a form of coverage. It's just an alignment. So you could be in press and make things harder on defenses. So I'm just curious to see. We won't know what the defensive plan is until we see training camp, right? Because that's when you start seeing the small wrinkles from a new defensive coordinator when they're going through install, when they're going through the walkthroughs, during camp, when they're doing certain things. So that's what I'm trying to wait for before saying, oh, he's bringing this style of defense over with him as a defensive coordinator. I do know. So I went and I looked up Nick Sorensen and the coaches he played for. They're aggressive. So Brandon Staley, aggressive. So my guess is if you're going with their mindset, they're going to be a more
lot of
aggressive defense.
Man stuff, right?
More blitzing, more stuff like that out of the nickel, more linebacker blitzes. So it all just depends on what they want to do as a team.
Okay, I really like that. And then Mr. Corey, kind of going back to our comments on like who the real defensive coordinator says. Jimmy Ward said Kyle picks the starters on defense.
Most coaches do, though. Most head coaches do.
Yeah. And then I like Tom said Staley will likely add stimulated pressure and five-man fronts, fits who they added. I agree. And it sounded from Nick Sorensen's comment where he said, yes, we're going. And I feel like that's probably how most coaches approach each new year. We're going to keep what we do well and the foundation of our team. But yes, we will be open to small adjustments with what we've seen other teams do well and have success with, and what our personnel is now geared more towards. A lot of people really didn't like the Nick Sorensen interview. I did see even Rob Satscarrera quote tweeted, I think it was Larry Kruger asked him, like, why did you win? Why do you think that you got the job? And Nick Sorensen, did you hear his response? He literally was like, oh, well, you'd have to ask Kyle and John that. Like, I think it's because I'm here and I knew the scheme. And I was like, that's like, even if
That
that's
was the
true,
most
it
disappointing
just
part of the
didn't
interview.
sound confident, And I feel like when people say like D'Amico Sala, whether or not, and I'm not saying Nick Sorensen can be just as good as them, we don't know yet, but there is something to like you want your defensive coordinator to have like assertiveness and confidence and like hold himself high. And I do think that when people are talking about the maybe like surfer effect of him, he does come kind of very mellow and maybe without that confidence. But players are used to him. If they like him and they're willing to play hard for him, then this won't matter. But right now we're just kind dissecting like one interview. But I agree that someone else said he looked clueless to me. He could be a fall guy quickly. Someone did ask him, like, do you feel pressure? And, insinuating like you had a top 5 defense last year and that guy got fired. But, and I will say, I think this is, maybe he didn't say it aggressively, but where he did show some confidence is he was like, I don't feel pressure. What I'm going to do is try to coach my guys up and give them as much information as possible, and hope that they can execute my system and hopefully put them in the best positions. And I'm just going to trust that that's going to basically keep my job safe. Which, I mean, what else can you say? You can't really go out there and be like, yeah, I'm nervous that I'm going to get fired because the bar is so fucking high. But
I thought no, but I do agree with Cubs where you command the room, command the respect of who's interviewing you, right? Like when he's asked, "Why are you hired?" Oh, go ask Kyle and John.
Well,
Nah, man, even if that's what you believe,
I was just here. It's like,
all right,
even if that's not,
even if that's why you were hired, right? Show some respect for your, like, in terms of yourself. Like, you know what? I got hired because I'm a great coach. I'm a great defensive mind. I understand the system. Like, make it sound why you were hired. Like you're interviewing with the press. You're interviewing with the entire organization. Fans are gonna watch this. Players are watching this. It's like that's where I'm kind of confused. It's like, are you? Did you only get hired because the Niners couldn't get the defensive coordinator from Kansas City away? Like, is that the only reason why you got hired? Because it kind of, it's what it sounded like. Oh, I got hired because I've just been in the room. Like that was a very interesting take, and it's very something I was blown away by when he answered that. Ask Kyle and ask John. Like, you could have answered that by explaining how smart you are and defensive wizard you are.
You are for the job.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, I was one of the first people interviewed, but then I knew they were going to go interview other people, and I was okay with basically sharing the job with them, which just like, shows a lot of maybe what Jonas says is he got hired because he's a pushover. That might be a little bit harsh, like a harsh way to say it. It's very possible that, some people that were interviewed, if they would have been asked to basically have a guy over their head who can influence the guys that they're drafting, the guys that they're signing in free agency in the system, they might say, no, like that doesn't make it my defense then. Where it feels like maybe Nick Sorensen was more willing to, have a guy kind of leaning down over him in Brandon Staley. So interesting. Internal respect, it bleeds outwards. The one thing that I will say, because I agree with everyone's assessment that the interview didn't look strong, but supposedly he was hired because at least the players respect him. And honestly, that when we look at Steve Wilkes, that's what matters most, right? Is can you command a room with the players? Now, where I could see hiccups is maybe if Brandon Staley is kind of sending down orders and or schemes or whatever, and maybe the players don't like it. And if they can see through the BS and see that that's not Nick Sorensen's idea, then you can start seeing them tune out him because they know, okay, well, you're not really even the guy in charge, which goes back to an earlier comment when someone brought up Jimmy Ward and they said that they went straight to Kyle Shanahan because Jimmy Ward said when he had a problem with his role in the defense, he went straight to Kyle Shanahan because he knew that I think it was D'Amico at the time didn't really have the power over, where if he was going to be starting or not. It all went down to Kyle. So it'll be interesting.
It's crazy. A lot of people didn't like the interview. I'm surprised how many people didn't like the interview.
Yeah,
I'm surprised. Truthfully, I am.
I thought he looked like relaxed, but you're right.
I thought he was too chill, but
I'm seeing a lot of that's why I keep wanting to qualify. I do know he looked really mellow. Maybe could have had a stronger stance within himself. Definitely passed up the opportunity to kind of like promote himself in that way where even like if someone came up to me and was like, why are you a podcaster? Like that's same thing with you. You can like, that's a way for you to sell yourself. You can say, well, I'm really knowledgeable and I'm really passionate about this and I'm very consistent and hardworking. But instead he was like, oh, it'd be like me being like, I don't know. You gotta ask Marco. I was just here and Marco asked if I would want to stream with him. Instead of me being like, well, Marco and I have really great banter and like we're, both very like, yeah, he just didn't do a good job at selling himself.
However, I would be like, I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Yeah. But I mean, I want to keep repeating he was, he's apparently the face because the players like him. And to me, that is at the end of the day, what matters most, right? Would you not agree? If he shows up and he's mellow in every single press conference, but the players buy into him and they trust him, don't you feel like that's what's going to matter the most at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's all that matters. As long as the
team liked Steve Wilkes and the players didn't care. You know what I mean?
As long as the players don't care, that's all that matters. As long as they play hard for him, at the end of the day, that's what matters.
Okay, so we're gonna move into today was the first, training rookie mini camp practice. Now it was only like an hour and 10 minutes from what I've heard, but we have some interesting takeaways. I think what people are probably, and I know what I was like most excited to hear about was how did Ricky Pearsall do? I'm just gonna always refer to him as Ricky. He's gonna be on the team for like 8 years, and I'm gonna still be struggling with that. Unfortunately, apparently he was targeted 4 times. The ball hit his hand twice, and out of the 4 times he was targeted and the 2 times that it hit his hands, it did not become a catch either of the times. Now, this is one practice. It, 7-on-7 type drills. It wasn't, this doesn't mean he's a bad player, but not exactly what people wanted to hear about the first round draft pick. It's always exciting if, practice 1, there's some downfield pass and he makes the catch and whatever. And apparently there was one downfield pass that Tanner Mordecai a little bit overthrew, but still hit Ricky in the hands and he did not come down with it. So that was I feel like that I wanted to touch on Ricky first because I think that that's the number one thing that people were probably looking for out of training camp. But we'll go through the good and bad that we've heard about everyone so far. But did you hear about that? And
so I talked to multiple people that were at the rookie minicamp, just because I know Grant put out what Grant does, but I also want to hear what other people thought. Yeah. And obviously Grant wasn't lying. Like multiple people that I talked to.
You hear spreadsheet said he was like, Ricky looked so smooth, and anyone who is questioning it doesn't know what they're watching. And I was like, David,
he did not. So from the person I talked to said he looked fluid, he looked smooth during individual drills when no one was covering him. He said when he got pressed, he goes, granted, there is no refs, there is no flags being thrown during 7-on-7. He got clamped. And he goes, and not just by Renardo Green, he got clamped by dudes who will not make the roster at all, not even make the practice squad. That's concerning because when we drafted him, my biggest concern was he's not great when it comes to press man. Like,
Yeah.
so if you're getting whooped
I said
at the
that,
line of scrimmage
said
by
that in my like initial reaction, and people had so much pushback for me. I got so many like comments on my thing that were like, "That's not true," blah blah blah. And I was like, "That's everything that I heard from all the like mock drafts that I looked up about him were that he can really struggle when cornerbacks get their hands on him."
and
Which
that's the
sounds
thing
like
for
happened.
me. It's I'm not expecting you because obviously it's day one of rookie minicamp. It's day one of learning the install and everything like that. Oh, that's just a lie. Justin Jefferson was great against press man. Oh, he was really good against press man. I remember that conversation I had with multiple people. Jonas, I thought he was great against press man. He was actually a guy who I mentioned. I wouldn't be shocked if the Niners took him at 13. That's how good he was coming out of college. So for
To
that,
bring up Cubs' comment really quickly, I did preface this entire conversation with we are going over the first practice only in rookie minicamp, rookies going against rookies, guys going against guys who aren't even going to make the team. The quarterbacks might even not make the team, might be practice squad guys. Ricky can come in for the rest of the offseason and light it up, and this does not matter. But to say that we can't talk about his very first going on the field, you know, we got to talk about this stuff. It is important. First impressions are important. They don't mean everything when it comes to how am I blanking? Bengals wide receiver, really good. Jamar Chase, he was like dropping balls like crazy for like his rookie year. So, you know what I mean? Like things happen. I like if he can't separate, then no need to pronounce his name correctly. There we go. That's when I'll start nailing it down when he starts making big catches. Anyone who didn't know, that's I was given Jawan Jennings a little bit of shit, and then he ended up just stunning on me for like the rest that second half of the season. Felt like he made every third down catch, and I had to start giving him respect. So when Ricky starts turning it around this offseason, I'll learn how to pronounce his last name.
so and I'm gonna comment back at Jonas. I don't got to go look up any of those Zerline Jeremiah's reports because I know what I saw from Justin Jefferson. And I have a tweet from April 21st during the draft. I said 49ers are taking Justin Jefferson. Most pro-ready receiver, is tough, runs good routes, has speed, good size, reliable hands, can play inside and outside. He's already played in the Saints offense. Why wouldn't you take the most pro-ready receiver? It's the safest pick at receiver. For me, I didn't see what they were seeing. No. They probably didn't have Justin Jefferson as receiver one. I did. I thought he was the best receiver coming out. So for me, it's when I do my own scouting, I do it because I truly see what I want to see, and I'm not going to look at their analysis for it. Shout out to you for watching me though. I appreciate you for being here. So that was from him coming out. Now with Ricky Pearsall, my biggest concern, actually, truthfully, is if he can't beat press man right now, even though there's no pass, nothing like that. Probably a lot of hand grabbing, a lot of jersey grabbing, a lot of. I guarantee you, there's jersey grabbing throughout the camp today. But you're going against dudes that won't be on NFL rosters. That's what's concerning.
I mean, you and I were just talking about how small Green looked, and I'm not saying, I mean, he could be great, but he's tiny right now, looked like a baby, and apparently was beating up Ricky. And I liked Fish and Chips said, you know, he worries him because he got bullied when he was younger, and that was the scouting report on him was when he has an aggressive mindset, and that's perfect. The 49ers do a really good job at getting guys who have like a 49er mindset, which I think is physicality. But everyone, if you looked at his mock drafts and why a lot of people had him in the second round, it was because when guys got his hands on him, or when guys got their hands on him, he did sometimes struggle with that physicality, not because like Dante Pettis, who got like scared of contact. It's not like that. He is aggressive and assertive, but sometimes you just don't have that natural power. If I was just gonna go fight someone, like even if I'm like like people are gonna be like, you're 5'2", shut up. You know, like sometimes you don't actually have that physical strength, whether or not you have the mindset about it. And I agree, he, to me, would have gone undrafted if it wasn't for COVID that gave him an extra fifth year. And then, he's 23 going on 24, beating up on 18-year-olds, gets drafted in the first round. It is kind of scary. Now, I don't we've you and I have gone over that when we went over the pick originally. So I'm not trying to just, rehash things and beat up on him. He does have the chance to get better, but from first practice assessment, it did seem that he struggled with that, and it's something that was in the scouting report that he struggled with.
And I do see Mr. Cordy saying maybe that's why he doesn't care that much. It's against scrubs. Against scrubs, you're a first round pick. You should be cooking the ass. You should
turn
be,
out, right?
you should be turning up. If a scrub at corner lines up on you, and you're a first round draft pick, and it's the first day of camp,
that's how you get in the doghouse.
Your thing is to cook the living crap out of it. Like, make sure, coach noticed you right away. And that's what these DBs and that's what these other undrafted free agents, these young rookies, this is the whole point of rookie minicamp, for you to come and show out to start, because what it does is it gives you an edge when it comes to OTA. So a lot of coaches, what they do is based off of rookie minicamp, based off of rookie minicamp, it gives you OTAs. It starts letting you see what a player truly is or what he needs to work on. So he should care. He's the first round draft pick. He should care.
Should absolutely care. You would think you would want to show out, and I would want, and what I was hoping is for people to leave this practice like there's a clear distinction between Ricky and these other later round guys. You know what I mean? That's what you hope. If you think these guys are scrubs, you want to go out there and you want to show I'm not even in this league. Because a lot of those people, like you're saying, aren't going to make the team. And the guys that aren't, if they were going against, someone brought up Debo. If Debo was out there, you would be able to see the difference. So if Brandon Ayuk was out there, you'd be able to see the difference. So if you're Ricky and you want to start this year, if you want to make the team, if you want to make an effort, if you want to look like the first round draft pick, you want to put yourself in that class. You don't want to go, oh, I'm just going to play down to their level. Like, what? You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like that's.
But the other player, the player that did stand out from everyone that's talking is Renardo Green, right?
Yeah, that's what I heard, which is surprising because I was down on him, not as a person, but when I saw how young and kind of small he looked, I was down. And then everyone that I've heard from said he stood out in camp. And when you want to talk about physicality, he was not afraid to use a little bit of hands, which obviously can be,
he was handsy in college. He was, I ain't gonna lie, he was a little low key a pass interference machine in a way. Like in the NFL, that ain't gonna go. So I did hear that he was handsy.
Who's the all pro guy that for the Jets?
Sauce Gardner.
Yeah, he's handsy as hell.
He's a top pick. So when you're a top pick, they're gonna give you leeway. Okay. So for Renardo Green, I did hear he was handsy. He's gonna give you some flags. But the thing is he did lock up Pearsall. But I wasn't shocked that he locked it. And I had said this on, who was I on with? Was it who was it? Jay Hart. And I said, I was like, I can't wait for that matchup because Renardo Green owned them when they played against each other. Like he locked them up. So I'm excited to see that matchup because when they line up against each other during their college days, Ricky Pearsall got clamped. So how does he react when Renardo Green? They're only make each other better. I know it's the first couple of days. There's no refs, no pads. This stuff doesn't really truthfully translate to the play field, but it is concerning. I mean, it's also great that your second round pick, who's probably going to start, is locking up the first round draft pick that you drafted.
I thought that was very good. I also wrote down that Isaac Guerrero did not really make an impact, didn't look up to NFL standard, and did drop a pass. I'm not super surprised about that. He showed out at the combine, but in college, he wasn't the best running back in his college. So I'm not like shocked that he didn't perform well in the first practice. How are you feeling? Do you anticipate that he'll make the team, that he'll end up looking good later on. Depending on, I mean, normally they only keep, do they keep 4 or 5 running backs, including Juice? I don't even know. I mean, I imagine he'll make the team because they drafted him so high, but
Truthfully, I don't look and I don't ask when it comes to running back or offensive lineman during mini camp, OTAs, and stuff like that. Because running backs, you're not going to get much unless it's in 7-on-7s and out of the backfield. Like there's nothing truthfully you're doing from the running back standpoint. At least with the corners and receivers, they're matched up with someone, so it's a lot different. I wasn't expecting to hear much from Isaac Garendo. Not good that he dropped the pass. I mean, because you're going to be that, if you want to be a third down back for Kyle's offense, you got to be able to catch, you got to be able to block. So I mean, could be just a one day thing.
He anticipates their running backs to also be able to be effective in the passing game, as we've seen from Jordan Mason's lack of ability to get on the field, even though he gets so many yards per carry in the run game. They really prioritize their running backs being able to be multi-dimensional players. Not saying that's good or bad, but I just think that that's the truth. I did want to talk Jacob Cowing. Apparently, I wrote down, had a couple of good catches, looked okay, got beat in press man, but did get open deep and almost caught a pass that Tanner overthrew him on. I was interested. I would have loved, and maybe because you did say you talked to some people, did anyone compare and contrast Cowing versus Ricky?
So I didn't ask, or they didn't compare him, but they also did say that he muffed a couple of punts. So that's but it's probably going to be Ricky back there catching punts because he's a safe punt catcher. Like, he makes sure he fills it. Doesn't really like nothing flashy or anything. But they did say Jacob Cowing's speed it's different. Like, they did say like his speed just stands out when it comes to his speed. So that's good. I mean, if that's what we're looking for, didn't really ask in terms of can you compare the two, but they did say his speed. He looks the 4.39, the fast 4.3 that he is.
I like that. Okay, well that's interesting. Okay, someone said Cowing will be Taylor Gabriel. Do you know who that is?
Taylor Gabriel was Kyle Shanahan's receiver when he was in Atlanta. He was a quick, shifty receiver. I mean, he was really reliable, slot guy. Wasn't like nothing special. But if you were a Falcons fan, Taylor Gabriel was a fan favorite. A lot of fans loved Taylor Gabriel when he was there.
Well, I could see that. I mean, depending on how he ends up turning out, if he keeps muffing punts, probably not. But I could see him. Do you think he'll be someone who makes the team, or is more of a practice squad guy? I'm anticipating Danny Gray gets
cut.
He
makes it.
Me too. Me too. He was catching deep passes. Is this talking about Cowing? Everything I heard is that he maybe he's talking about Gabriel, because I was like, he did not catch any deep passes this practice. Although apparently he did get open deep, just Tanner missed him. Do you want to talk about Tanner Mordecai? I was kind of hoping if he turned out to be a good player, he could compete with Brandon Allen and maybe be the 49ers, maybe not this year, but long term, end up being a backup for them. Apparently kind of struggled.
I'm not surprised. So Jesse and I were talking on the show last week, and we're talking about Tanner Mordecai, and I had said, or was it no? Either Jesse or with Jay Hart, but we're talking about Tanner Mordecai, and I had said like he's not good. So when I was writing for,
you weren't surprised then.
Yeah, when I was writing for Wisconsin, when they got Tanner Mordecai as a transfer to SMU, I thought he should have entered the draft when he transferred. He was in a spread offense, quick release and everything. When he went over to Wisconsin, they would cut the field in half for his reads. He wasn't that good, was inaccurate. Also was in an offense that is different. So I'm not sure how he responds. Ball placement for him is going to be the biggest thing. Is if you can't put the ball in the right spot, most likely going to be a practice squad guy. If not, he doesn't make the roster, and they pick up someone on the waiver to be their practice squad quarterback. But I think they roll with the 3 they have now.
I was going to say, even if even if he does end up competing with Brandon Allen, I could be wrong, but didn't they had Brandon Allen as a practice squad QB for most of the year, and they would just call him up occasionally, right? I
No,
think they only kept
he was on the
2.
roster. He was
Oh,
on the
okay.
roster. He was the third.
Alright,
He was the
alright,
third
I was
quarterback. He
wrong.
was emergency quarterback every week.
Okay. Okay. I knew that they had that rule where you could now have a third quarterback, but I didn't know if it was something where he was on the practice squad and then they just called him up for a game day. So that
Yeah.
makes sense. And Fish and Chips is correctly, he'll have to ball out in order to compete. Someone said Kruger has a crush on Tanner. I can understand like wanting, like I I have to be
He has
honest, just where
talent. He has a quick release. He has enough arm strength. He's athletic, but he wasn't
yeah.
undrafted for a reason.
Apparently supposed to be athletic and not compared to Brandon Allen could be important, especially if they're trying to get someone who is a little bit more like Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy, we've decided from what we've seen from his, is a little more athletic than we initially thought. And obviously,
Brandon Allen's on this team no matter what,
you think?
guaranteed.
Why? I don't like
He's
him at all.
so
Just because a voice in the room.
quarterbacks. Your backup quarterbacks, Josh Dobbs. Your third
Mhm.
quarterback is going to be the guy who is the smart IQ guy who could get the quarterbacks ready week in, week out. That's what a great backup quarterback does. He's watching film on the sideline, film in the meeting rooms. He's able to be the IQ guy and break stuff down for them. That's what he is for the 49ers. He's not if they have to get to their third quarterback or their second quarterback, they're screwed anyways. Like any team that ever gets to their second or third quarterback, they're screwed. So it's one of those ones where he's more of the IQ quarterback, and he's the one who's helping Brock Purdy and the offense game plan, watch film on the other team throughout the throughout the season during games. When Brock Purdy's on the field and he has the iPad in his hand, he's gonna be, hey, right away, as soon as Brock kisses, this is what I saw. And they're gonna be looking at it together. Like he's that guy.
And I will say, Jonas kind of said, insinuates what you're just saying. Backup quarterbacks are some of the smartest QBs. I think that's why they kept Nick
Mullins,
on the team for so long, because you always heard about him before games with the quarterback, with Jimmy, with whoever, going over the game plan, going over the script. Like he was a guy, and you want a guy who knows what's going on, even if, like, I almost feel like a lot of coaches value that guy's ability to see the game in the same way. Like if Brandon Allen can see the game in the same way that Brock Purdy does, or in the same way that Kyle Shanahan does, I think he would value that more, even than a guy who has who, if was called to actually play, could perform better, but can't articulate it as much. Your backup quarterback, especially your third string backup quarterback at that point, is more of a teacher than a guy that you actually expect to rely on. As 49er fans, we're so jaded because we're like, well, we actually have had to use our third string quarterback before. But most teams don't anticipate that being a guy that you're actually going to rely on playing. It's kind of like having a second quarterback coach. You know what I mean?
exactly.
A translator for when they're on the team and Kyle Shanahan's like throwing his clipboard at Brock Purdy, and you need someone else to like pick it up and be like, this is what he means. Ignore that. And then I wanted to say, if Dobbs and Allen we're in trouble. Dobbs, I think, could win a couple games for them, but obviously we saw last year, even once he was on a hot streak, not something that you would want to rely upon every single year. And then I don't know if this is true, but KJ Jin, I don't know how to pronounce anything, as we've seen from my inability to pronounce Pearsall's last name, said this is the first year a practice squad QB can be an emergency QB. Last year they had to be active on the roster, so maybe that's kind of what I was saying is maybe they only keep 2 QBs on the roster and they have a third guy on the practice squad and they just call him up every game.
It could be that. I mean, I didn't know that was the new rule. I'm not really. I don't pay attention to the rule changes until season starts.
You grin. That's how you pronounce it. I liked that. Who has been here longer, Allen or Purdy? Purdy, right?
Yeah, I think Purdy's been here longer. I think last year was Allen's first year.
Yeah. They got Allen
last year.
Yeah. Purdy's first full year starting, because he started in the middle of the season when he took over for Jimmy. And then, because at that point, wasn't Brendan Allen backing up Joe Burrow?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then, aside from comments, because I think people are going pretty on and on about the backup quarterback, which as 49er fans, I understand, but hopefully we won't have to, gosh, knock on so much wood. Hopefully we won't have to have too many conversations about those guys. I did see David Lombardi is on Twitter just going to bat that Ricky was smooth and beating coverages, and that anyone who says differently doesn't know what they're talking about, has a record of doing so, and did so today, even though literally every other reporter that was there, including Matt and this isn't just like Grant, but we're talking about Kruger, Matt Mayoko, they all said that Ricky struggled. So unfortunately, Marco and I probably won't be there till training camp, but we are trying to bring you the most factual information. I would say that it sounds pretty consistent that Ricky did struggle. Did you notice anything else that stuck out to you from the players that you wanted to mention? I saw there was the tight end, Mason
Klein.
Klein.
That's his name. Klein.
Yeah. He was highlighted, said struggles with blocking, but has really big hands and caught anything that touched his hands. So I don't know if that will end up being someone who consistently shows up, but I know that the 49ers were really in free agency looking for a tight end too. I'm not saying this guy will be it. Obviously, these are only reports from one practice, but I would definitely, if I was you guys and if I'm me, I'm going to keep an eye out on that, because I think that they're looking for a tight end that can come and be a tight end too.
I don't think Klein will. I mean, I think he has a chance, and I said this on Jesse Seal. He has a chance to impress with his big frame and ability to make contested catches and be a really good receiver, a tight end 3. As a tight end 3, tight end 2 hybrid.
Sorry,
you got cheese.
No, okay, so I can't eat dairy. I was actually just telling Marco, my friend is like, well, my dad, I'm like from a very Italian family, and I was hanging out with my friend who's very Italian, and they obviously all like cheese, but I can't eat dairy. And I didn't have to, but I ate a little bit of dairy the other day, and I have an upset stomach. So today I went to the store and I got some cashew cheese, and I got two kinds. I got like a feta that's like crumbly, and then I got one that's like brie style, and it's garlic and herb cashew cheese, brie style.
I've never heard of cashew cheese. I'm at the my wife's lactose intolerant, so I'm at the.
It's honestly like, I mean, I haven't tried the one that
does it melt well?
I got it from like a fancy grocery store, but I did go. If you've ever been to like True Food Kitchen, it's in the city. They have like an almond bruschetta that they put on their like an almond cheese, and I really like that. So I imagine
that store sounds expensive to me.
Yes. Yeah.
So probably have not been there.
Exactly. But okay, back to talking about the players. I was just excited about my cashew cheese.
So Klein, I was telling Jesse, like, he has an opportunity to be a receiving kind of guy. I don't think he'll be like a guy that makes the roster right away. Could possibly be a guy that's stashed on the practice squad and could develop. But he has some traits, like he has the basketball background, and like that's something. It's intriguing. It's like I'm not gonna like put him down or anything like that. It's intriguing. That's all I got to say. Like, not gonna say he's a great route runner or anything like that. It's just the receiving ability is intriguing.
Who is gonna be their tight end 2 right now if it's not him?
Cameron Latu and the fan base will like it.
Do you really think that?
I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, he redshirted, right? Like, he could have grown. I know he was injured for a part of that, but I mean, every part of people are down on what we're saying about Ricky right now. Freaking all of Cameron Latu's rookie offseason training camp, rookie mini camp, like every single report that came out about him was negative. So I don't have a ton of hope, but I don't know. He was also a reach. What's up with these guys that the 49ers reach on? Come on now.
I don't know. I mean, I think Braden Willis has the opportunity to compete for the tight end too.
Yeah,
he was hate him because he doesn't block, but
They put him in, didn't they? So
Yeah. So I mean, hey, Ben Sinnott, Mr. Corey, is with the Washington Commanders.
there we go. There we go. I wanted Ben Simmons in the draft over anyone not named Mims. I don't know about Ben Simmons, but I knew about Mims because Tom. I do a show with him, and he really enjoyed Mims. Bruschetta is bread? No, bruschetta is like, isn't bruschetta bread and then cheese and then tomato?
Bruschetta, yeah, I think so. I don't. Bruschetta is a style of bread, I think.
There we go.
I don't know.
Okay. Now the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about. If do you have a like couple more minutes, or do you want to?
Yeah. No,
okay.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. So online and on Twitter, people have been talking about, is Jordan Love better than Brock Purdy? Is Brock Purdy better than Jordan Love? Is it even okay to have that conversation? One, I want to start with, this conversation is silly. They both started their first season last year, basically their first full season. But I will say, and so we don't know how it's going to expand. And then I'll also give Jordan Love the extra, I guess, leeway of like his team around him is also young. But no. Bruschetta, hold on. No. Bruschetta is something, could be anything on bread. Okay. I didn't know that. I'm dumb. Bruschetta is toast with vinegar.
I thought it was I thought that's what it was.
You guys got to Google this because I don't
know.
I'm going to lose my Italian card now. Luckily, I think my dad was tuned in earlier, but he might have stopped listening by now. But he's going to be in my text messages later, like type in like, how do you not know what bruschetta is? So don't let my grandma hear you. She's already mad that I don't. Someone said, keep the mic still. My bad. Okay. Love needs to go again and prove that it wasn't just new tape. I think people could say similar things about Brock Purdy. I will say, I think that right now they are not. Maybe they can be like. I don't even really think they're in the same conversation. I think Brock Purdy is like better, much better than Jordan Love. Is that fair? Like, when it comes to, okay, let me ask you first, what is important to you in a quarterback? Like, what makes a good quarterback to you?
First, I want a leader. Can he lead a team?
Okay.
That's a good quarterback. Can the quarterback run an offense that he's in? The quarterback can he read a defense? I think both quarterbacks have that. I think the leadership ability was more on more apparent for Jordan Love. He led a rookie team, a rookie offense to the playoffs. Brock Purdy led a veteran style of team so deep into the playoffs, into the Super Bowl. So you can look at them both as a leader. I don't think it's, and I know I had this conversation yesterday. So whoever is watching, don't report me again because I talked bad about Brock Purdy, all right, or take Love over Purdy. Yesterday I got reported for it. So don't do that, man. Like, keep it cool. Like, I'm talking in terms of analyzing, and so don't report me, please. Or else I won't talk about Brock again.
Yeah. This is a friendly conversation. No one.
Cubs probably did. It probably was you. Probably was you, Cub.
This is a friendly conversation. I think the conversation, one, is fair, and two, is just fun, right? Like, I think rivalries and getting to compare and contrast players makes me excited to look at both teams next year. So I think there's nothing wrong with that. Now, I will say, like, to me, what's most important in a quarterback is, I agree with you, leadership. I think like a clutch factor, like an ability to stay calm under pressure, an ability to navigate a pocket that's breaking down.
Good question. How do you determine if a player's clutch or not?
Probably
it's
their
hard.
Like fourth quarter performance. Like, do they melt down?
You kind of can't though.
Like stuff like that.
It's hard to.
I would say Jimmy G was not clutch. He lost his mind at the end of the game.
But if we're looking at like game-winning drives, right? Like, he's had game-winning drives, so he's had clutch moments. Like, do we consider that being clutch?
If we polled it, people would agree that Jimmy G lost his mind in the end of most games.
So for me, the way I look at it, the way and I explained it on Jesse's show is there's two ways you can look at it. Who's the better quarterback for the now? I think that's Brock Purdy. I think he's the better quarterback for the now. I think Jordan Love had a great first year as a starter. I think Jordan Love has the higher ceiling, the better, probably could be a top 5, top 7 quarterback with his traits, and he showed that towards the end of the season. I think Brock Purdy is going to be more along the lines of a top 10 quarterback if he keeps his high level of play. Now, once the league starts to adjust to both of these quarterbacks, who's going to be able to make the adjustment better? Who's going to be able to have the arm strength, the ability to make these high level throws? I think that's more leans towards the side of Jordan Love. A lot of fans talk about Jordan Love in the Niners playoff game as he choked because he had those 2 interceptions. Mm-hmm. Well, we could talk about Brock Purdy.
He led the league in interceptions in the fourth quarter, aside from take away the playoff game. He threw tons of interceptions in the fourth quarter.
But he also led his team he also led a rookie team with a bad defense to the playoffs. So it's like, did the fourth quarter interceptions matter? Like that's where kind of like
those are game killers.
Are they game killers? They made the playoffs.
That's why I didn't like Jimmy G, is because I felt like he would throw the ball to the other team in a pivotal moment where you can't come back from it. I think if Brock Purdy made the throws that Jordan Love made, like the mistakes, the decision making.
He did. Yes, he did. There was 2 throws against the Packers that hit the DB right in the chest. They dropped it. Both of them would have been pick sixes. If
you look at PFF, they have like a stat for and who knows if these websites are right. I know that people disagree with them, but I just was looking at PFF and they grade like interceptable balls, and Jordan Love had a far higher percentage of interceptable balls than Brock Purdy did.
You could look, we could look at those stats, right? But like,
and doesn't that mean like that takes into account that balls that weren't caught but could have been, right?
And the thing is with Brock, right? Like we're looking at things a lot differently between these 2 quarterbacks. If both of those interceptions that Brock threw weren't dropped, right? Like literally hit him in the hands, would have been a pick 6 both times. But that's still
taking consideration.
Those are, yeah, but it's like, so if the DB makes the play, Niners DB just made the plays. Like, it's not like it's 2 different things. Like hit him right in the chest, right in the hand. Those are bad decisions. Those are just as bad of a decision that Jordan Love made in the fourth quarter.
I think so. All quarterbacks make a bad decision at some point or multiple, depending on if you're, have good decision making or bad decision making. But like no quarterback has no interceptable balls. Even Patrick Mahomes has that. So what I looked at, because I heard people making that argument where they were like, okay, don't look at actual interceptions because a lot of Brock Purdy's interceptable balls were dropped. But if you look at interceptable passes, which takes into consideration balls that should have been interceptions but weren't caught, Jordan Love is still much higher than Brock Purdy in that.
He is, but also do we put into consideration Jordan Love's playing with a bunch of rookie receivers, a weaker defense where he has to carry the load a lot more. He has to put the team on his back in certain situations because he knows his defense can't. He knows his defense can't make a stop in the fourth quarter. So now he's making throws that he normally wouldn't because he feels like he has to be the savior of the team.
Okay. You made 2 comments and I disagree with both of them. First of all, Jordan Love had a tendency of being like a playmaker, which can be obviously a positive. I think it can go good or bad, right? Like you can end up making risky plays that end up terrible, or you can end up making heroic plays. I think in order to win a Super Bowl, you need to be a type of quarterback that does play a little bit of hero ball and take chances. You have to be confident in your arm. So I'm not even saying that's bad. But when it comes to maybe you saying like Jordan Love had to take more chances, people in the comments are going off.
They want you to keep going.
Jordan Love did this in college too, where people would say, even in college, they would say like he has talent, but he just loses his mind and goes crazy and makes decisions that are erratic. And maybe your comeback to that is he also felt the pressure to be the hero in college. I know that a lot of people say that's the difference between Brock Purdy's interceptions in college when he used to feel like he had it all in him versus now. So I think maybe they both struggle with like a hero complex. Now, what I will say when we're only talking about weapons and is it all on you or is it the system? Jordan Love was throwing to wide open receivers, which is on PFF 5 yards or more between the wide receiver and any sort of secondary player. So open by 5 yards or more. Jordan Love far threw to far more wide open guys than Brock Purdy. So even if Brock Purdy had more recognizable names, those guys weren't getting open as often as the Packers guy. So if we're looking
I'm gonna
at
pull
this
an
team,
argument
right?
that most 49er fans I'm pull an argument that most 49er fans make for Brock Purdy in this situation, right? Are we're gonna blame Brock Purdy for having a great offensive play caller? Are we're gonna blame Jordan Love for having an offensive play caller that gets his receivers open?
No, I think that's good, but I'm saying you can't say that you can't use that as a takeaway against Brock and then not
No,
say
I'm saying
Jordan Love
I'm saying that
also has that same.
they
Jordan Love,
both get propped up because of that, right? So like we look at the interceptional passes. They both only have 11 interceptions on the season, right? When we look at Jordan Love, when we look at Brock Purdy, the one who has higher upside is Jordan Love. If you had to pick a quarterback for the next 10 years, just based off of their one season starting, I'm not taking Brock Purdy. I'm taking Jordan Love because he has a higher upside. He has the more potential to be a legit top 5 quarterback in the NFL for a long time. Brock Purdy has that too, but
what do you have to back that up though? I don't necessarily agree.
he looked like a top 5 quarterback towards the end of the year.
I don't think so. I think he gave the game away in the fourth quarter a ton at the end of the year.
The end of the year,
if you look at his completion percentage for his last 10 games and compare it to Brock Purdy's, because everyone says that. Everyone says that you can't compare full season to full season because the Packers started slow. If you look at completion percentage for the last 10 games of each, Jordan Love is still not as accurate and is still throwing to more wide open guys than Brock Purdy.
From week 10 on, Jordan Love was 6-2. He only threw one interception from that standpoint, those 8 games. Like most of his interceptions, they came in the beginning of the year when he struggled. After that, it was a completely different story.
Of course, you want to talk about the last game of the season.
Oh, that's the thing too. We could talk about Brock having those bad passes, those bad interceptable passes, and if it's completely different story, if those DBs actually make the play they're supposed to make.
Okay, Jordan Love in the fourth quarter, including the playoffs, completion percentage 54, interceptions 7, passer rating 73.1.
This is in the playoffs?
Only better in the whole year, including the playoffs. So not just regular season game. So, I mean, he was only better than Justin Fields and Will Levis. Like, he was very bad in the fourth quarter.
I mean, I'm taking Jordan Love. I get what you're saying.
If Brock Purdy was in a category, if he was as good as, only if he was third worst in the league, only as good as Will Levis and Jordan Love, we'd be like rioting for him off the team. And I feel like I did see Michelle's, but I couldn't use her stats because she uses next gen something, and I think you have to pay for it. I think you have to pay for it because when I was looking it up, I couldn't find them. But I got all my stuff from PFF, which was free.
Ashley, let me ask you this: do you think if Brock Purdy's on the Packers make the playoffs?
Yeah.
No, they don't.
If Brock
is on the Packers and he's leading a young receiving group and a young offense,
I think
they are not making the playoffs.
More leadership and can execute a system better. He's more accurate. He can throw the ball more accurately. They both are good.
So you're saying
They both are in quarterback friendly schemes, right? Like the McVay or not McVay, sorry.
the Shanahan.
The Shanahan and Matt LaFleur system are both good for Yak, both quarterbacks when I was looking this up on PFF. And by the way, I'm not downing Jordan Love. I really like Jordan Love, and I agree with you. I think he could be a top 7 quarterback, top 5 quarterback later on in life. But just going off of this one, comparing both their years, it's just not a question. Brock Purdy was more accurate and ran the system better than Jordan Love did. And I think that to criticize Brock Purdy for being a system quarterback when Jordan Love was also in basically the same system and throwing to guys who, once again, were more wide open than Brock Purdy's guys, I don't understand that criticism. And
so if we add
the few times that Brock Purdy did go off script, sometimes one of those I think ended up in a touchdown, and he had to come back and be he was like, oh, I'm glad I did it, but also I won't do that again. And then he went and did it again, and the next time it led to an interception. And Jordan Love did a similar thing, but just did it more often. So I think when we go to decision making, both are good at running their system. I just feel like I don't really understand criticizing Brock Purdy for being in a quarterback friendly system.
I'm not criticizing him for that. I'm not criticizing him for that. But we're also looking at, when I factor in Brock Purdy's drop percentage was only 2.1, Jordan Love's 5.2. When we look at other stats, Jordan Love threw the ball 135 more times than Brock Purdy. So if we had Brock throw 135 more times, does he throw more interceptions? Does he have more interceptionable passes? Most likely he does.
With that, that's one of the things, right? People say, and I'm one of these people too. I had to look at some of the numbers, and I think there's you can go, not you, but I want to go based off my eye because I don't think numbers tell the whole story with everything. But sometimes when I was watching Jordan Love, I was like, oh, he has a stronger arm. Brock Purdy on far less throws threw the ball down the field way more than Jordan Love did. Same thing. People say Jordan Love has more of a playmaker to him. He's more athletic. Outside the tackle box, if you look at their completion percentage numbers, Brock Purdy did far better escaping pressure. And yeah, maybe Brock Purdy has more well-known playmakers who did, better, even though, once again, when it comes to wide open guys, Jordan Love was also throwing to wide open guys. But I would say, and I think you agree too, that the Packers have a way better offensive line than the 49ers did.
Brock Purdy have a better offensive line, but the thing, you're playing with all rookie receivers. That's where I'm at. I want to see them play another year, right? I think it's close. I would take Jordan Love. I think, and it's for me, taking Jordan Love for the next 10 years, it's an easy decision for me to make. I'm taking Jordan Love over the next 10 years if I had to choose one of them to build a franchise around, because I feel like Jordan Love, he has the higher upside, and that's where I would go because he can make the reads, he can make all the throws. That's where I would go. And I'm not saying Brock is going to good quarterback. I'm not saying Jordan Love is a better, a much superior quarterback. I'm just saying, for me, Jordan Love, the argument for Jordan Love being a better quarterback is much stronger than Brock Purdy because of the circumstances of the rookies, the drop percentages, throwing the ball more. It allows you. You're going to be more sustainable to interceptions and bad passes that are leading to interceptable balls because you're throwing the ball more. If Brock threw the ball 579 times, what does his stats look like? He's going to have more yards and everything like that, but I don't think he's going to
touchdowns too then, right? And right now, Jordan Love had not as many we're talking about yeah, maybe his interceptions would go up, but wouldn't you also assume that he'd have
his touchdowns are going to go up too, for sure. He'll have way more. He would have probably hit.
Dumpster Fire Dan brings up, what about processing accuracy and pocket presence? And
they both have good. They both have good. They both have good processing and pocket presence.
I think that Brock Purdy beats out Jordan Love quite a bit in those three.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In terms of, and when you're talking accuracy, are we talking ball placement or are we talking about completion percentage?
I think they both probably do pretty good at ball placement, right? Because they both have done a good job at allowing their wide receivers to get yards after the catch, which, although obviously like can take away from a quarterback because your wide receivers are doing something. You also do have to put the ball in the right place for them to be able to keep running. I think they both do well at that. But yeah, when you look at completion percentage, downfield, behind the line, how many passes you're throwing behind the line of scrimmage, when you're looking at passes on the run, which is something people always say, like Jordan Love has playmaking tendencies. When he's on the run, I mean, he is awful. I mean, he's like really bad on the run. And
The
when
best part
you
is
look
we
at
get to see them. We get to see them because it's truthfully, it's hard to say which one is better, which one's going to be better because we've only seen one full season of both of them,
yeah,
right? Like so,
no,
like
they
that's
really
where it's
and also like isn't where you make the biggest jump. I mean, and I know both of them, like Jordan Love has been on the Packers and Brock Purdy started a couple games, but we're talking about their first season starting. When you usually make the biggest jump is you're going into your sophomore season, right?
usually. I think it's
Yeah.
more so your third year. I think
And
your
I think
third
like
year is when you make that jump.
also if you think about it, like Brock Purdy last year didn't practice during the off season until like he didn't even play, right? Until like the preseason? Like when was he actually on the field
Yeah,
practicing with his
well,
starters?
fully. I think it was right before preseason.
Yeah. I will hold the I will hold the
But it
mic in one
but
place. I'm so
it's gonna be
sorry.
fun to see because both of them they both get to continue playing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, as a
100%.
49er fan, I hope Brock proves to be the best quarterback in the league. Hope he becomes better than Mahomes. Like, truthfully, that's my stance. Like, I want Brock to be that quarterback. I just don't think he's much better because I know a lot of fans on 49er Twitter are like, oh, it's not even close. Brock is much better. I don't agree. Like, I think Jordan Love has the ability to
So
be better,
bad.
and I think it's pretty damn close in comparison to them.
I will say because some people had mentioned and I did retweet it, Michelle's interview that she did. And I will say a difference that I tried to do because I wanted to be fair is when you look at like statistics for the full season versus looking at the last 10 games, Jordan Love got much better.
Much
Um
better.
and his numbers are a lot closer to Purdy. Now Purdy was like top of the stats, but I mean also Nick Mullins was like top of the stats when he was in this system. So I'm not saying that's all on Brock Purdy, although I do think he had a really big impact into it. He's still saying keep the mic in one place. I'm trying, man.
The Italian in her is like just
What I was going to say before I was thinking about the mic. Oh, when you look at the last 10 games, Jordan Love's numbers are a lot closer to Brock Purdy. So that is fair. Um, and I do, and I think that probably has something to do with the Packers in general, not just Jordan Love started slow. And then as the rookie and second year wide receivers grew together, they I think got more continuity, as Kyle always likes to say about the 49ers offensive line. Um, so I think that it will be interesting to see what the Packers do this year. Someone I think on a previous show with you and I asked who I anticipate will, be competing to win the NFC, the Lions or the Packers. I think if we're going just based off of the end, and I don't even mean the last 5 games, but like the last 10 games of the Packers season, I would say I'm more scared of the Packers. So I'm not trying to down Jordan Love. I think that they could be an extremely competitive team. I'm more scared of what the Packers will be this year and for years to come than I was when they had, Aaron Rodgers, because for some reason we ate their lunch when they had Aaron Rodgers. Where this
so it's gonna
year
be
it was like a last minute Jordan Love losing his mind, or else we wouldn't have even freaking made it to the championship game.
so that's the thing is like it's for me it's much closer than people want to talk about it. For me, it's one of those ones where it's gonna be fun to watch, right? It's, both of them being young quarterbacks, that's probably the best thing for this league. NFC doesn't have good young quarterbacks. If you look at the NFC, they're
Yeah.
desperate for young quarterbacks. So it's I'm excited to see
Okay,
both quarterbacks.
I said this like in such passing, but people are hung up on my little comment. People are choosing the Lions. Are you more scared of the Packers or the Lions?
I think the Lions have the more complete team, but I think the Packers have the better quarterback.
This is where
I think
maybe
Jordan,
I'm Where
Jared
maybe I'm
Goff
an
is
asshole.
like,
So I'm like, I'm not scared of Jared Goff. I'm more
yeah,
scared of Jordan Love than I am of Jared
I'm
Goff.
not scared of Jared Goff. I know it. He's a guy that I would rather play in the playoffs.
I agree that they're more physical. I mean, literally everyone disagrees with us. I didn't realize that this was so controversial. Um, I agree that the Lions are more physical. Now, did they improve on their secondary? Because that was their main
They
weakness.
did. They got Terry on Arnold. They also got the dude from the Bucks. They
Lions.
did get better. The Lions are a good team. Their quarterback. The quarterback is the biggest weak link.
Yeah. I've like their offense in general, which not saying it was, and their defense really struggled. It'll be interesting. I mean, Ben Johnson stayed with them, so that's good. Another year with them. I like the Lions, but I do feel like the promise of what the Packers could be if all those younger players continue to ascend, which is what I would anticipate. I think that's why I feel like they could be. Maybe it's just more they're a little bit more unknown. I feel like the Lions are pretty good, but we kind of know what they are. Where I feel like the Packers, I'm not sure how big of a jump they're going to make, and they have the ability to make a big jump. So
Absolutely. So it's gonna be
people are
interesting.
like really disagreeing.
No, the Packers are the Lions are a really really good team. It's just Jared Goff is stationary, and you know what you could do against a guy that's stationary when you have a good defense. So I would rather play a quarterback that I know where he's gonna be versus Jordan Love, who could make ridiculous level throws that Jared Goff can't.
Perfect. Okay, I didn't even realize that we had been chatting for almost 2 hours. So we got really into everything. I had such a good time. I loved all the interaction that we had in the comments today. It was really nice. We obviously had a lot to talk about. I'm really glad that there's some new stuff coming out. Everyone, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Ashley Ariana, and like this video. That really helps with the algorithm. Subscribe to my channel. That really helps with me and my ability to keep doing this. And do the same thing for Marco. We both really appreciate it. His channel's Clutch Gene Sports right there. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to be doing lots more shows coming to you. Rookie minicamp continues next week, right? If I'm not wrong.
I'm not too sure. I didn't pay attention to the dates, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well, I'm doing a show on Monday with Steph, and I think we'll probably be reacting to new news that's happening. It'll also be interesting to keep an eye on Brandon Ayuk and what's going on with that. So everyone, please like and subscribe. I had a great time debating with you, Marco, and with everyone in the comments. Thank you guys so much. Have an awesome weekend. Be safe. I'm going to a Giants game, so
Nice. Enjoy. They're fun.
Bye, guys.